Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. No one actually heard that, but I perfectly timed my little drum thing.
I'm not even gonna lie. I thought you had something that you could see when it was gonna start. That's how perfect it was.
No, I was literally
really taken aback.
It was a guess. It was completely a guess. They don't give you a countdown. It's go live, and then there's that little stupid buffering wheel, and it's like, hey, there you go. That's why Ryan's so surprised every time we start a stream.
Every time. You do it every time.
Every single time. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Divisional round is behind us. Conference championship is ahead, but of course, we are still recapping the 2020 NFL season, focusing on receivers this week, of course, after we discuss what happened over divisional round weekend. And then, of course, towards the end of the show, we're going to preview anything in the conference championships. Chris doesn't want to talk about the divisional round because, once again, Jared Goff blew chunks.
No, Jared Goff was great in the divisional round. It was our defense. Rodgers shredded our defense.
Dude, Rodgers and the Packers offense as a whole right now just looks unstoppable.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Remember when Jalen Ramsey said he was going to shut down Davante Adams? That was cute.
Only had one reception on Ramsey, if I'm not mistaken.
Remember when Davante Adams said nobody could stop them, forgetting that they're playing the team that, in fact, stopped them this season?
I'm just saying, it's interesting, how Jalen Ramsey gets pissed because he should have been the one to cover Davante Adams on that touchdown catch. But, it's
look, and that's the beauty of the Packers offense is how they're able to move people around. And when you have somebody like Davante Adams who moves the way that he does, you can do all that. You can cover anybody. It's just not gonna work. And to answer your question, Chris, Adams actually had 3 catches against Ramsey.
Yeah, go Adams.
On 3 targets, mind you. So
3 targets, 1 for a touchdown. Go Davante
After
Adams.
He was picked off by his safety. Should have moved over.
Yeah, technically that Davante Adams touchdown wasn't credited to Ramsey, even though I guess it really kind of was.
That's 100% stupid. He was dogging it halfway across the line of scrimmage until he realized Adams was getting the football and then yelled at his defensive back. Ramsey's he's simply a bum. He will never win.
What does it matter, John? I was going to say all corners are trash.
Anyway. All corners are trash. All corners are trash. That is the hill I will die on. All corners are trash at this point. Every single one of them. I mean, it's impossible to cover a receiver because you can't touch him. Yep. So it is, unless you're Daniel Sorensen, it is impossible to play defensive back in the NFL.
That's right.
But what I want to start the show off
play
with,
by Daniel Sorensen.
Yes, very heads down play actually by Daniel Sorensen. He led the charge head first to make sure his team would win the game. Okay, enough about that. Someone had tweeted me earlier today on Twitter. I don't know if he listens to the show. He apparently does because he listened back to it. Jariga _FF. I don't know who it is, but if you're listening, we appreciate you. He said he was listening back and talked about a metric about advanced metrics that I had. And I told him, get ready because there's going to be a Drew Brees rant tonight. And he was kind of like, oh boy. So that's what we're going to start off with here is Drew Brees. Cooter, if you're listening, I'm sorry to rip on your quarterback, but here we go. And I'm going to preface this because Ryan was very mad that I was going to rip on Drew Brees, but here's the first sentence that I typed. You cannot deny Drew Brees of his regular season accomplishments. You can't do that. It's not relevant in this conversation, and you'll understand why.
You know what they say about everything you say before the word but, right?
Means nothing. Means absolutely nothing. His playoff performances and appearances have been anything but great. Literally anything but great. Brees has a 500 win record in the playoffs. Just here's some quarterbacks that have a better record. Eli Manning. So Drew Brees has a 500 win record. Eli Manning has a 667 win record. Joe Flacco, same thing, 667. Phil Simms, 600. Bob Greasy, 545. Trent Dilfer, 833. You may be asking, what do all these guys have in common outside of a better win percentage in the playoffs than Drew Brees? They all have the same or more Super Bowl rings than him. So I'm not just picking out players that never made it to a Super Bowl and have a better playoff win record, they all have the same amount of rings, if not more. So, just bringing that in there. Speaking of Super Bowls, Breeze has appeared in one. One. Not won a single one. The one that he appeared in, he did win. But he's only appeared in one. Like
rough.
that.
You could say.
I mean, really,
you could
doesn't
say he's
that-
never lost a Super Bowl?
Yeah, there's that. I was also going to say
and
it
you could
also
also-
kind of shows how difficult it is to get to the Super Bowl for people not named Tom Brady.
Sure. And that's completely understandable. Drew Brees never had to play Tom Brady in the same division until this year. So what's his excuse for the last 15 seasons? You know, him being the second best quarterback in the league or a top 3 quarterback. Why can't Drew Brees get to the Super Bowl, considering he has had a top 15 or top half of the league defense the last few seasons and has won his division every year since 2017?
I apologize if you said this already. How many playoff losses does he actually have?
He is 9-9.
I believe.
Okay.
I thought Breeze
9
was 5-7.
He is 9-9. Phillip Rivers is 5-7.
That's what it was that I was thinking of.
I was just wondering because when you really think about Breeze's time in New Orleans, it's not like the Falcons, Panthers, nor Tampa Bay was ever truly dominant. So you would thought he would have been there a lot and then just lost, which is the whole point of this argument. So.
That's the whole point of this argument. Like the last 4 seasons, and I'll get to it, he's won his division. And this is something that people kind of hate on me for, that I bring this up, but I truly believe there is a lot of relevance to this. It cannot be measured in the slightest, but I think there is true relevance to this. His only Super Bowl win came after the city he plays in suffered one of the biggest natural disasters in U.S. history.
Yep.
2 straight seasons of 500 or below previous to their Super Bowl run, then went right back to where they were, losing in the first round of the playoffs, which they have always done in the Drew Brees, Sean Payton era. The other teams that have sucked in previous years and have, quote-unquote, won it for their city after a big announcement or a tragedy, the Red Sox and the Patriots in 2014 after the Boston Marathon bombings, the Astros in 2017 with Hurricane Harvey. Say all you want about cheating, they still won the World Series, and yes, They did cheat.
They did everything they could to win that World Series.
Exactly. And the Ravens in 2012, you cannot convince me if Ray Lewis did not announce his retirement midseason, the Ravens go to the Super Bowl. You cannot convince me of that. You cannot. That was something that helped push them. And again, you cannot measure that. And everyone's like, well, the Boston bombings have nothing to do with Pete Carroll calling a pass play on the 1-yard line. No, it doesn't. But it does have something for the pride of the Patriots players to try and win that game for their city. Same thing with the Red Sox. The Red Sox were the worst team in baseball in 2013, best team in baseball in 2014, and the worst team in baseball in 2015. That's an anomaly.
Well, not to mention, you kind of hit on this, specifically with the Saints. It gave them the extra push they need to get there in the first place. You had to be in that position to make that play. So, yeah, obviously, Pete Carroll blew that play. But if the Boston bombing doesn't happen and the Patriots aren't extra motivated, they might not even be in the Super Bowl. Yep. And then we're talking about a completely different Seahawks era as well. So.
Exactly. That could be, the technical start of the dynasty in Seattle, because that would have been 2 out of 3 years, I believe, Russell Wilson had won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but now all they've done is just run it in the ground.
Yeah, because that's the Pete Carroll USC method. Run it into the ground.
And now they're talking to Adam Gase, which will come up later.
I love it. We'll get to that later, because I still have a lot more here. Sean Payton and Drew Brees have won their division.
Jesus Christ, you've already been going on 9 minutes on this.
Listen, no, I haven't. It's been like 4. They've won their division the last 4 seasons, like I talked about. Their record, you ask, in their postseason? 3-4 in those 4 seasons. And for those saying they didn't get the PI call that they deserved in that Rams game, Chris, you're going to love this, because I'm going to defend the Rams.
I love how you say that as he's taking a sip. I was totally waiting for you to just spit all that out, Chris.
Breeze had the ball inside the red zone on their first 2 possessions in that game against the Rams, and they settled for field goals.
Yep.
Oh, and they got the ball to start overtime, and Breeze threw a horrible interception. Like, it wasn't the defender made a great play. It was a bad interception, like a terrible interception. And you know how people are saying, oh, we need to change the overtime rules because whoever gets the ball first always wins? Tell that to the Saints. Ask them how they feel about that. Also, On Sunday against the Buccaneers, he got the ball to open the game on Tampa Bay's 21. He essentially got the ball in the red zone. 6 plays, 16 yards, had to settle for a field goal. Not to mention he threw 3 interceptions, with 2 of them coming on their only 2 possessions in the fourth quarter. And yes, should Jared Cook have caught in that last interception? Sure, but Brees threw it into double coverage. Even if Cook catches that cleanly, he's about to get lit up by Antoine Winfield, so he might just drop it. Brees made a bad throw, and that one where Alvin Kamara didn't even turn his head, that's on Drew Brees, because that's just a piss-poor throw out of Drew Brees. So, again, Brees is not good in the playoffs. In 3 of Brees' last 5 playoff appearances, not just saying his playoff games, his playoff appearances, he has a touchdown-to-interception ratio of 1-to-1. Nothing better. 3 of the last 5 years. Every touchdown he throws, he has a turnover. Tampa Bay had 21 points off turnovers on Sunday. So don't tell me that doesn't play a factor. And then CBS Sports put out a graphic on Instagram, I believe today, talking about the top 5 QBs with the highest passer rating in NFL history. Aaron Rodgers, 100.4. Montana, 95.6. Brady, 90.2. Flacco, 88.6. Troy Aikman, 88.3. You may be asking, where's Drew Brees? Because he has a 97.1, which would sit him second all-time. Too bad he hasn't won 10 postseason games, because that was the benchmark in order to make that graphic. Drew Brees, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, hasn't won double-digit games in the playoffs, where it actually counts. Nobody can deny Drew Brees of his regular season accomplishments. I already said that. But what's the one thing we bring up with Peyton Manning? He sucks in the postseason. And Peyton Manning should be 500 in the postseason, but he's 14-13 because his defense bailed him out in Super Bowl 50, where he single-handedly recorded the worst statistical performance by an offense of a winning Super Bowl team in NFL history.
And actually, that would have put him below 500. Because that win would have then been a loss, Joe.
Yeah, so not even at 500.
Oh, God, I wish. I wish. But you're right. You're right to even think about that. But that's the one thing we bring about with Peyton Manning. No one is denying Peyton Manning and what he did in the regular season. Not a single person. But the thing you bring up with Manning is he always struggled when the lights were the brightest. Why does no one say that about Drew Brees?
You know who doesn't struggle when the lights are the brightest? I believe Jameis Winston has 1 career postseason play and 1 career postseason touchdown.
Boom.
Yet they want Taysom Hill to be their starter when Brees retires. Just saying, guys. Just saying.
What a mess.
So there's my Drew Brees rant and why he is wildly overrated. And I feel my case is very rock solid.
No, you do actually bring up some really solid points about the first thing out of anyone who doesn't adore Peyton Manning's mouth is that he could not win in the postseason. And nobody says that shit about Brees. And we talked about this a little earlier before we got online, that it's often brought up about how bad he is in outdoor games, but nobody brings up outdoor games as a fun anecdotal thing. The postseason is a very real thing for quarterbacks, and nobody seems to toss that on his lap. So,
I just find it interesting. So, and again, if you're a Saints fan, more power to you. Send the guy off in the greatest way. Brees seems to be a good guy.
Except when he's talking about politics.
Except when he's talking about politics. And listen, I say this all the time. I have nothing against these guys as people. They're just not good. They're just bad at their job. And Brees isn't bad at his job. He's just overrated at his job.
Just you saying sending the guy off. I saw the funniest thing today. I think it was on Fake Sports Center or some shit like that. But it was Phillip Rivers had a quote that he now finally has time to start a family.
Yes. I think it was Trey Wingo had tweeted that out. It's like Phillip Rivers now finally retires. He now has time to start
All I know is this opens the window for Philly to trade the Colts Carson Wentz.
I'll take
it. Also, I can't wait for the Eagles to sign Josh McDaniels as their head coach and realize 3 years later that was the biggest mistake they could have ever made. But a quick recap.
Apparently, they met with him for 8 freaking hours. Like, Jesus Christ.
They really just want to know if he's going to quit. Immediately.
No, he would get the job and then quit on them. Or
love it.
No, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Just a obviously quick recap of the divisional round. You're going to see the Packers and the Bucs face off. Bucks go into New Orleans and win. Packers stay at home in Lambeau and win. That game will be in Lambeau. I believe it's the early game as well, 3:05
It is.
Eastern. And then in the AFC, the Browns were the Browns. The Chiefs will move on, and they will play the Bills. The Bills will travel to Arrowhead. Patrick Mahomes' status still up in the air.
Practice in full today.
Yeah, so again, still up in the air, but very much I would be genuinely surprised if the NFL doesn't give him.
Well, someone
the
even said he was
pass.
tweeting after the game. And
He was.
I know the NFL is very careful about media after head injury. So the fact that he was already doing that speaks volumes as well. So
Yeah, but when you're the face of the league, does it really matter what
That's
the
true.
protocol is? Everyone knows that. If you're the face of the league, you're a star. Protocol means absolute jack shit when it comes to that. So, all right. Now into our wide receiver accountability. We're going to start with who did you hit with the head on the nail? I didn't say it right, but you know where I'm going. All right,
Words.
Josh, you had Keenan Allen, A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, close on Robert Woods, close on Amari Cooper, Tyreek Hill, Justin
I just went through
Jefferson.
and just went.
Did you okay, you just didn't miss, I guess.
I'd say Josh killed it.
Yeah, Josh apparently hit on
I
every
just
single
made
one
some
of his
notes.
receivers.
You didn't have to actually go through and read off all of these.
Well, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Josh did hit on Deontay Johnson, and we'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah,
and
something tells me we'll be talking about that one.
Yeah, something tells me we're going to talk about that in about 2 seconds. Ryan, you hit on Tyler Lockett, Mike Evans, and you were also very close on Juju and Amari Cooper. Chris, Terry McLaurin, A-Rob, A.J. Brown, and Amari Cooper. It really hurts me inside that Amari Cooper is a top 10 wide receiver. It just
Well,
hurts.
really, he was top 15, if I'm not mistaken.
The fact that Amari Cooper can be drafted in the first 5 rounds just makes me mad. That's all it is. It just makes me mad.
Chris, I think you have that
number 10.
15. He finished 15, and you had him at 10.
Yeah, you had him at 10. He was PPR 15.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Okay.
All right, wide receiver 2 maybe I can live with. But no, he's
Oh, just imagine his season could have been better had Dak not gotten hurt.
if Dak didn't get hurt, Dak was throwing for 7,000 yards, 70 touchdowns, and Amari Cooper was catching 30 of them for 3,000 yards. Like that's
I
how
went
their
through
offense
and
was
I
running.
did his whole what he was on pace for with Dak. Oh yeah, it was monstrous.
It was.
And they would have been 8-8.
Yeah,
It would have been just.
I mean better than what they finished. So
It would have been
Barely.
utterly ridiculous what Amari. It's just because their defense was so bad, Dak would have had to pull them out of a hole every game. But let's start here. I do want to give a quick shout out to Hitman. I told you Robert Woods would be a top 12 receiver by the end of season, so thank you. And we'll get to Josh's little side bet, I guess, with Hitman saying that Higbee wouldn't be a top 10 tight end, but that's next week. Josh, take your run at Deontay Johnson. Stupid. He still wasn't wide receiver 14.
that's okay.
You don't
That's
get all the
okay.
credit. You don't get all the
Everything
credit.
else that I projected him for damn near hit. When
What
I
about
went
drops?
through I don't project drops. Sorry.
Okay. All right.
I don't project drops, but
Okay.
I do make mention of when you look at how this season played. Like I had him projected for 129 targets. You find me somebody on Twitter in the fantasy football industry as a whole that had Deontay Johnson anywhere close to 129 targets.
Josh, you had Deontay Johnson slong 6 inches deep down your throat. Like that. That's how
Whoa.
much you were in love.
That's
with
okay.
Deontay Johnson.
I had him for a 21.98% target share, and he finished with a 21.95% target share.
Yeah. I mean, he was target 1, 2, and 3 in that
Yeah.
offense because he's
Look,
the only guy that could get open.
Because he knows how to get open. There's nobody else on that team that knows how to get open. That's why they put him in the position to feed him the football. Yes, the drops, they came, whatever. He's a young receiver. They'll get better. CeeDee Lamb, we've been all over this guy. Guess what? He was top 5 in the league in drops. Does that mean he's a bad wide receiver?
No,
It
because
means he's young.
Because CeeDee Lamb is God, so that's just let's leave him out of this
Okay.
conversation.
Okay, so by that logic, then Deontay Johnson's Jesus, right?
No,
so
no,
they're
Deontay-
1A and 1B.
They're
There
not
you go.
even in. They're not even in the same strategy.
I'm just gonna,
was
I'm gonna
Deontay
step
Johnson
in now and say this is not the conversation. We should
Was-
be having.
was Deontay Johnson compared
You
to
gonna
Jerry
shut up
Rice?
and let me talk, Joe? Jesus
No, was
Christ.
Deontay Johnson compared to Jerry Rice coming out of college? No,
Oh.
CeeDee Lamb was. Carry on.
Anyway, I was within 3 on his receptions. I had him at 85. He finished with 88. Yes, I was down. I had him a little higher on the yards per reception. But again, I gave the benefit of the doubt to the Steelers running game. They proved me wrong. Shocker. Yeah. I had him at 8 touchdowns. He had 7. But again, I'm focusing more on the target share side of things because nobody thought he was going to be their leading target guy. And that's exactly what he was. When you talked about value going into draft day, everybody had Juju as a top 12 wide receiver. By all accounts, he let you down. Yes, he finished at wide receiver 16, so not that far off. He ended up with more catches, but again, a much lower yards per reception, a lower ADOT, which, again, this was Deontay last year because he couldn't – they just weren't giving him any space, and they had bad quarterback play. They got their quarterback back this year. They still had average quarterback play. There were times where Ben Roethlisberger down the stretch looked absolutely terrible. Yeah. And he couldn't hit the broadside of the barn later on. He was missing these wide receivers. He's putting it in the vicinity, so they have to make tough catches, but that's where some of these drops are coming from. Not all of them are literally right in their breadbasket on target throws. So
I remember you were saying Roethlisberger was a MVP candidate back around week 11. So
I mean, they were 11-0.
You said Ben Roethlisberger was an MVP. Why
I
are
said
you on
you
this?
could put him in the conversation.
Yeah, no.
That's what I said. When you are the quarterback of an undefeated team, yes, you belong in that conversation. It was a short-lived conversation because he proved.
I was like, didn't make it past that week, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Doesn't when you're the quarterback of a bad undefeated team.
They were still an undefeated team. At the end of the day, you are what your record is.
Who had played the NFC East 3 of those games.
So did the Rams. They still made the playoffs. What's your point?
Well, the Steelers also made the playoffs. I mean,
okay, they're good teams. They made the playoffs. You can say that they were overrated or they underperformed or however
the Washington football team made the playoffs. Like, are we really gonna?
But they won the division. They won a bad division. That's the difference. If this were cumulative and no divisions there, they would not have made the playoffs.
Josh, my local high school team in New Hampshire could win that division. Like, that's not a hard division to win.
You sound logic, not made up logic, Joe.
That is sound logic. That is sound logic.
Anyway, back to my point. Deontay's ADP, wide receiver 39, finished his 21. I preached all offseason, draft Deontay, fade Juju. You made the right call by going with Deontay.
And let's be clear, he played better than the wide receiver 21.
Absolutely he did.
Because you knew the game. He missed, what, 1 game and technically 2, right? Like he got
I think he had 2 or 3. He left like a couple games early, and I think he missed.
Yeah, and you can't predict the leaving early. You would have started him, you would have lost, but you could have taken him out of that lineup where he missed the week and all that kind of fun stuff. So
yeah, I mean, good season, and you actually projected him for less catches than he actually got, and he dropped like double-digit catches, so he actually would have had more. So, which of course then puts him over that 1,000 threshold. Probably another one for a touchdown. So,
I would like to say too, I know I was harsh on AJ Brown going into the season, and it wasn't because I didn't like AJ Brown. I did. I liked AJ Brown. I love his potential. For me, it was the regression of the yards per reception, which didn't fall as far as I thought it would, but it did dip.
Well, I mean, it came down from 20 to 16, and 16 is where you start to see those deep wide receivers fall in. So, I mean, it was pretty accurate to call that dip. So,
but where I missed was the touchdowns, because when you look at what I had him projected at 106 targets, 67 catches, 1,012 yards, and 7 touchdowns. His actual numbers, 106, 70 receptions, 1,075 yards, 11 touchdowns. Well, the 216.15 that I had him projected at to the 241.5 that he scored, it's literally those 4 touchdowns.
Okay. I say the one interesting thing about him, and I have him on my players I missed on, but you pretty much hit on what I hit, that it just wasn't, the YPR was crazy. And I also thought touchdown regression was going to happen. But the most interesting stat, first and foremost, he came out this week and was told that he was told to miss the season during that injury and decided to keep playing. And then I went and looked this up. He was the wide receiver 4 in fantasy football from week 5 on.
Yeah.
Obviously, recovering from double knee surgery is going to be interesting. If he recovers, he's going to be in the fantasy MVP conversation next season, because he was banged up and was the wide receiver 4 from week 5 on. it's not going to get worse. It's likely to get better. I think this kid, and you're probably going to be able to buy an injury dip on him, but it's going to come with a lot of risk. Cause have we ever dealt with somebody getting surgery on both knees?
That I know of.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still in a low target volume offense. I mean,
But-
Ryan Tannehill had 481 pass attempts.
And that's what I was just about to bring
You
up.
have to bank on this type of efficiency, which again, I'm not saying he can't do, but again, through 2 years, he's proven he's going to be efficient. Maybe at a certain point, we just got to buy into it.
That's what I was going to bring up is big. One of the biggest things is like, well, Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry's the offense.
Yeah.
And AJ Brown's like the supplemental guy. Derrick Henry both hurts and immensely helps AJ Brown.
Takes a lot of attention off of him.
It like you need, if you want to stop
Play action.
Play action. If you want to stop Derrick Henry, you got to have at least 7 guys in the box, and 2 of them have to be linebackers.
Yep.
Like you have to. You probably bring in your safety up into the box to help stop Derrick Henry. So what does that allow? That allows AJ Brown one-on-one coverage on the outside, and that's Chris. You said it. Play action is probably the bread and butter of that Tennessee offense. That's where they take their deep shots, and a guy like AJ Brown, obviously, speed, size, hands, gets down the field. Dude's ridiculous. We all said we weren't worried about AJ Brown as a skill player coming out of college. It was just the situation he landed in.
Yeah. Volume.
Yeah, volume, and I don't think anybody was fully sold on Ryan Tannehill or at the time it was Marcus Mariota, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously no one was sold on Mariota, and then even then it's like, Tannehill looked good. Can he sustain this? Because we've seen what he'd done in the past. Derrick Henry is Ryan Tannehill's best friend right now. If he loses Derrick Henry, that offense goes to shit. So something to keep in mind. But yeah,
But Tannehill's shown that he can throw it, so maybe that actually helps AJ Brown from a statistical perspective.
He can, but again, I would like to see him more in not AJ Brown, Ryan Tannehill, in how does he do without Derrick Henry in that backfield, and more of a traditional
Well, he's going to have
offense.
a different OC this year too, so that could very well change things also.
What a terrible head coach signing by the Falcons. What a terrible head coach signing. No one has made a good head coach signing so far. Not a single person.
I disagree. I love Saleh and the Jets.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I forgot about Saleh. I like that. Okay, I like Robert Saleh as well. Urban Meyer to the Jaguars, biggest disaster since Nick Saban to the Dolphins.
I don't
Biggest
get the
disaster.
I don't get the Dan Campbell rush either. I was like, all right, cool, man.
I don't.
Strong personality, disciplinarian type. I don't know.
I
I don't know. Maybe he could be a good coach. I mean, we all kind of laughed at Joe Judge going to the Giants last year. He had him on a right track towards the end of the year.
I mean,
But Joe Judge had for his unit, he was coaching special teams unit.
Yeah.
He consistently had the best special teams unit in the NFL for 5 straight years. His unit, yeah, and I understand special teams is a very minor part of the game, but still, his unit year after year was the best unit in the NFL. I mean, that speaks for something. So, just to back up the Joe Judge signing a little more. I don't get the Urban Meyer thing. I don't get Arthur Smith. Who did the Chargers sign? The DC for the Rams. I mean, he put together a good defense this year.
DC Sean McVay.
It's we're taking these shots on another Sean McVay guy. How's Zach Taylor panning out in Cincinnati right now? He don't look too good.
Zach Taylor got the job because he had lunch with Sean McVay one day when they were going over, quarterback situations. But Brandon Staley.
No, go ahead. Yeah, no,
Brandon
finish.
Staley absolutely transformed our defense. We were underachieving year after year after year with Wade Phillips, who just ran the same Manila formation, didn't adjust, and I mean, that's the reason why we were there. Where in the divisional round was because of Brandon Staley and what he brought to the table. So I don't mind that hire.
I just think, there's some guys who sit there and say, I think Josh McDaniel is probably the prime candidate. They're better suited as a coordinator than they are a head coach. I think that's a very
and right now we don't know that about Staley.
We have no clue.
We could very well find out that maybe he's better off as a defensive coordinator.
Well, I was going to say, and while we're ragging on the Arthur Smith hiring, he's following the same sort of trajectory that LaFleur did, and they're in the NFC Championship. So
sure. And again, it's going to be Matt LaFleur was handed Aaron Rodgers. Arthur Smith is handed a washed-up Matt
Ryan.
Ryan. Yeah, a washed-up Matt Ryan. Julio Jones, who needs bionic hamstrings. And no running back with a terrible offensive line in a defense that doesn't understand what fourth quarter football is. Like, he's not handed a good team. LaFleur was handed a good team.
Yeah.
So, like, Mike McCarthy should have been fired a while ago, but LaFleur was handed a top 10 quarterback.
But it also says something to the fact that, we all said that Rodgers was, quote, washed up after last year. And they've only lost 6 games in 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know who
I don't want to say washed up, but regressing. Let's put it that way.
Josh, those the same
down here.
Those are the same idiots that were saying Brady's terrible now, and then when he went to Tampa, they were like, Tom Brady's back. Like, those are the same people saying that. They know nothing. Okay, Aaron Rodgers still Aaron Rodgers. Brady's still Brady. There's a freaking reason they're playing each other in the NFC Championship on Sunday. It's just, I know, like, none of us were really preaching that. But a lot of people were saying that, and that's just kind of like, these guys, like, Peyton Manning hit a freaking wall because he had 3 neck surgeries. Yeah. Like, that happens.
They were literally using centrifugal force to fix the blood in his neck or whatever.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Like Manning fell off a cliff, because surgery. Like, that's just,
Well, keep in mind too, Rodgers has had a couple injuries over the last 5 years that could very well
collarbone, sure. He didn't have 3 neck surgeries in like 9 months. So it's like Peyton Manning hit a wall. Rodgers isn't even 40. Clearly Rodgers and Brady are made differently than other humans. It's very apparent. They're made differently than other humans. And if Mahomes keeps on the way he's going, Mahomes is going to be the same thing. He'll be 43 and still slinging the ball 60 yards down the field. Again, assuming everything goes as many people are projecting it to.
That's exactly what the NFL wants. That's why these rules are in place to protect these quarterbacks as well.
They're their money makers.
Yep,
because it's the big plays, it's the crazy stuff that happens. No, 100%. All right. Players very far off on, because we did touch on A.J. Brown a little bit. I want to pat Ryan on the back for Tyler Lockett. He said he's not worried about DK Metcalf, what it would do to Tyler Lockett. Despite DK Metcalf having a great season, Lockett.
He's on my missed list. So
I was the only one that actually had them back-to-back in their rankings, and they finished back-to-back in the fantasy standings. So
they were, I believe they were also back-to-back in ADP.
Yeah. There's one other person. There's one other person I want to throw out, though, is Mike Evans. My projection was only off by 6 points, but it more goes to, and Joe, I know you and I love to have this stupid fight, but Brady threw and completed more deep balls this year than he ever has in his career.
He also incomplete.
Evans goes over 1,000 yards again for, I believe it's now the 7th straight season, which is the record all his own, I think, at this point. 13 touchdowns, which carried him early in the season. But from week 8 on, he was the wide receiver 6 from 8 to 16, if you take 17 out of the mix. And more importantly, and this is something super interesting, he could be the only wide receiver returning to that team next year. If Godwin gets tempted, and Antonio Brown gets tempted, you could see both of them walk elsewhere. And then you're talking Evans, Scotty Miller, and Tyler Johnson, which, don't get me wrong, Tyler Johnson, monster catching, could be a really interesting dynasty pickup.
One of the best route runners coming out of last year's draft.
Exactly. And he was a red zone monster as well in Minnesota, to where I really think Evans' value is not going to fall off next year.
No. I also want to bring up Troy Aikman acted like Tyler Johnson
saved the world on that.
Yeah, saved like Troy. It was a really good catch, but Odell Beckham caught it with 3 fingers. Like, are we really going to compare the 2 catches? Like,
it wasn't even close.
It's that catch by Tyler Johnson didn't even crack the top 25 of NFL history. Like, it's not even close. Unbelievable catch, and for those who have never tried to attempt a back shoulder catch, it is nearly impossible. So great catch by Tyler Johnson. Excited to see his future. And Josh, good call. Potentially a cheap dynasty pickup. Some players were very far off on. I think everybody was extremely far off on Stephon Diggs. I don't think that
Chris,
was
I think, was
Josh.
the closest.
Yeah.
Where'd you have
I was
him,
the
Chris?
farthest.
21st. I had him as a back end wide receiver too, so I was still pretty far off. That's translates to about 100 fantasy points.
Yeah, Chris, mine was 100 as well.
Where
I had him at wide receiver 32, so you guys were better than I was.
Where did he finish? What was his final ranking?
3.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, and he was being drafted like I think he was wide receiver
6th round.
Yeah, I didn't go look at
36
ADP.
or 37.
My favorite thing is he actually had more catches this year than I had him with targets in my projections. So, oops.
I love that.
Same.
And,
I had
hey, hold on.
116 and he had
In
127.
championship week, you did drop a 50 spot, so that helped. Josh also have Robbie Anderson and Curtis Samuel and Tyler Boyd as misses. Ryan, you just say so many.
Many.
You also say,
Really, that's all of us, though.
yeah, I mean, yeah, most everybody. And Chris, you had Diggs, Devontae Parker, Justin Jefferson, and DK, just like Ryan had said, and Chris Godwin. I think an interesting one to talk about is Devontae Parker here. You said you had him 11th in your rankings, and he finished 40th. He was injured for some games, and obviously that quarterback carousel between Fitzpatrick and Tua definitely kind of pulled at the heartstrings of Devontae Parker owners, myself included. Is there hope for him in the future? And let's just assume right now, Tua's a starting quarterback. Deshaun Watson stays in Houston. With Tua at quarterback, how do you feel about Parker next season?
I feel like we still saw volume with Tua, but I'm not going to throw any quotes out on that, but I'll look into it while Chris talks.
Yeah, I mean, I had him for 127 targets, and he still cracked triple digits, 103, so not that bad. Where he lacked was the touchdown department. I had him for 8, and he only had 4. But, yeah, the Tua middle of the season just kind of tanked Devontae Parker in terms of his yards per catch. But I think I would have him as a back end wide receiver 2 next year. I mean, Tua will have the entire offseason. I think, did Chan Gailey get
he's
fired?
He got canned. Yep, he got canned.
Okay. So it'll be a new system. I'm sure they'll bring in more weapons, so it's not just Devontae Parker and just a bunch of guys. I think he still has a decent top 24 with Tua. It was just unfortunate to go from Fitzpatrick to Tua in the middle of the season.
It was, and I think everyone I think said it when was it Fitzpatrick the second game that they played the Jets. Fitzpatrick got the start because Tua was hurt, and everyone was like, "Fire up your Devontae Parker shares" because Fitzpatrick's in the lineup, and that helped Devontae Parker I think in the first half of the season. And you're right, Chris. Tua didn't have the whole offseason. He's now going to have a full offseason with that offense. Again, assuming everything stays the same and Miami doesn't try and trade for Deshaun Watson, which they very well could with the draft capital they have. They could easily send Tua and both of the picks that the Texans sent them for Deshaun Watson. I'm sure Houston would want more, but they can easily do that. It's interesting. Go ahead, Ryan.
Couple of quick things I found on Parker. So he was the wide receiver 25 from weeks 8 to 13, which was kind of the healthy span that he played with Tua. Because then he came back for that Kansas City game, but was basically used as a decoy because he only had 2 targets that game. But he did have 63 targets in the 8 games he played with Tua. Paces out to 126 target season. I would say there's
roughly what
hope.
we had him at. I mean, I had him at 128.
At 127.
So, yeah.
Woo, congrats.
Well, I mean, look, this is all projection, right? Like, this is what we're doing. So, if you can take 8 game sample sizes and push them out. But, I mean, look, if Miami doesn't draft a wide receiver, we're all going to be shocked, whether that's Devonta Smith, whether it's Chase, whether it's Waddle, one of these guys, who knows? He needs somebody next to him, right? I like Devontae Parker. I've been a huge fan of his going back to his Louisville days. I stuck by him throughout all the injuries. He was healthy last year. 2020, not so much. So there's, he's battling these little ticky-tack injuries, but Chan Gailey was never built to mentor and groom a young quarterback. It's not in his history. When you look back at all of his, decisions as a play caller, he had young guys before, never took the time to work with them. It's just not who he is. So this was always going to be a mulligan type year for Tua. That's why, like, when I did my projections, I thought that Fitzpatrick was going to be the guy. I only had Tua really for 1 game. That was it. Yeah. So that's why I had Parker where I had him. If somebody had given me the manual and said, "Hey, Tua's going to play half the season," My projections for Parker probably comes down. But keep in mind, too, they did lose Preston Williams early in the year as well.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Plays into it also.
You two would know better, Josh, Chris, and Joe. So you three. That would be three of you.
I assumed you were addressing the whole room, but go ahead.
With Preston and Parker built to play the outside, is there a wide receiver coming out like CeeDee Lamb who is better suited to play the slot? That might be.
I would disagree that Lamb is better suited for the slot. I think that's just where they're playing him because they want to get the best players on the field. I mean, in terms of the slot,
just plug in Devonta Smith wherever the hell you want to plug him in, and he's going to be good.
Okay,
it's
that's the guy that can get off the line.
Dude's a stud.
Yeah, I mean, he can play. Sure, I mean, they move him around the offense a lot. Obviously, he has a rapport going back to college with Tua. I think that either him or Waddle, I think, would be great just in the sense of, hey, they know that quarterback, and Miami could probably trade back, pick up a couple extra picks, and still get a guy like Waddle because people might be going Gaga over Chase and Smith. But then you keep in mind, too, you got Rondale Moore, you got Rashad Bateman, Diami Brown, excuse me. I mean, there's plenty of guys in this draft that could easily play the slot. This draft isn't full of like big body wide receivers.
And that's what I was wondering because if they go out and get, and you've now answered that, but if they were to go out and get a big body guy, I'm just like, I understand where it helps, but how much does it help unless you're just flat out giving up on
Let's be honest. The simple answer here, go sign Juju. He plays the slot.
Better answer. You get my man Albert Wilson back next year.
Yes, Albert Wilson. Also, Juju in Miami. That's not a recipe for success. I'm sorry.
Juju
was a problem in
TikToks, though. Just think of the TikToks.
I bag on Juju a lot. I think he's a very talented player, but he's not a number one guy. He's immature. Well, yeah, and he definitely has some growing up to do. Sure,
immature in Miami.
I understand
Juju
that.
Making TikToks in front of the meth lab distribution.
But if there's somebody that can get him on the right path, it's somebody like Brian Flores. Joe, you and I both know that.
I mean, I say it all the time.
Because Flores isn't going to be the guy that puts up with the bullshit.
And I say it all the time.
And Tua is a strong leader. Like, everybody in that locker room loves him, despite all the quotes that are going around.
I say it all the time. If there's anybody to fix anybody, it's Bill Belichick, and Brian Flores is a clone of It's just his demeanor. He is a clone of Belichick. So I agree with that standpoint, but like Antonio Brown, like it was like off-field issues with Antonio Brown, off-field issues with Randy Moss, and all these different guys that have come in and out of New England. Juju has off-field issues, but he's just immature. It's just immaturity.
Kid. Does he really have it? Off-field issues? It seems like all of his issues.
No, I mean, it's not like
legal
legal issues. It's just it's just immaturity. It's dealing with the platforms, the social media, the attention. How do I handle this? Like that's what we're talking about in terms of off-field.
Yeah.
It's just immaturity. He's not getting into trouble, mind you. He doesn't know how to separate the off-field, immature shenanigans from bringing that onto the field from acting a professional.
Yeah.
And listen, it's great that he is trying to build his brand, trying to make money outside of football. I mean, it's all great. But, if you're just here to, do this for the money, bro, you could probably make more money being a content creator than you are a wide receiver in the NFL right now. And it doesn't risk your health.
Yeah.
Like, go be a streamer, go be a TikTok creator. Like, dude, you're going to make so much money off freaking endorsements. Like, it doesn't even matter. So, and that's the thing that worries me about Juju is immaturity and, how dedicated is he to the game.
So young, too, though. So, I mean, there's plenty of
Extremely young. And I want to bring up Dave's question since we're here talking about receivers. And a guy that I think most everybody was off on because he literally didn't.
I don't even bring injuries up when
he played like a game. I think
he played
Kenny Golladay. What he asks is Kenny Golladay going to be the steal of 2021? You can see him dropping into the 4th round. Dave, this all depends on who his quarterback is going into 2021.
Could also depend on what team he's going to be on.
Could also, correct. Could also depend on his team. So let's say, how about this? Let's say, because here's a team that needs a quarterback. I'm just play with the Patriots here. The Patriots sign Stafford and they sign Golladay. Let's just say they both
trade for Stafford.
I thought Stafford was a free agent. Apologize. Trade for Stafford, get Galladay, because Stafford's going to be relatively cheap anyways. And they get Galladay. How do you feel about Galladay going into next season? Again, he had the injuries, and it's different from wide receiver to running back, but we've seen a guy like Adrian Peterson have a season-long injury, come back the next year, and fall into that 4th round spot, because I remember getting him in the 4th round, and he comes back, he's the running back 1. I'm not saying Galladay is going to be the wide receiver 1, but could he be a wide receiver 1 next season?
I'd still put him as a wide receiver 2, but he definitely has that wide receiver 1 upside because we've seen it. I mean, he's a touchdown guy. He's a big-bodied wide receiver who can make those contested catches and get into the end zone. And he's not afraid to go deep. Stafford has a good arm. Now, if you're saying that he's going to go to who are some other noodle arm quarterbacks? I don't know. If Phillip Rivers was staying in Indy and they decided to bring in Galladay, like I wouldn't be buying Galladay too much on that side of things. Or, if Cam Newton's, brought back to New England, which Joe, I know he's not going to be, but
I will literally kick
that's
you
not
off
going to make Cam any better. And, it's not going to make Galladay any better. But most of the quarterbacks out there nowadays, they have decent arm strength.
Yeah.
So I think really anywhere that you put him, he can be a legit wide receiver 1, but I'm not going to draft him at that price, knowing that he could very easily fall to, anywhere between the 3rd and the 5th round. I mean, he was a 3rd round pick last year.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is the 4th round far enough down? I don't know.
I was going to, 4th round, depending on the size of the league. I mean, if it's a 10-team league, he could very well slip to the 6th.
Well, no, what I'm asking you is, are any of you, and I was not huge on Galladay coming into the year, and he ranked out high for me, but I was not huge on him. He fell down with my confidence. Is anybody jumping to grab Kenny Galladay in the 4th? Any
Yes.
size league? Really, Chris?
Yes.
Please tell.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it just depends. I mean, Joe brought up the Stafford, New England thing. I wouldn't be drafting him if him and Stafford went to New England in the 4th round. That would be more like 5th, 6th roundish. But like if he stayed in Detroit with Stafford, absolutely. I mean, Marvin Jones is all but gone, and he's an alpha wide receiver. I think top 12 is more than not predictable, but like I can see that. I can see it happening top 12.
So where he talked about, Stafford and Galladay both going to New England, why would that situation and environment change if he stayed in Detroit with Stafford?
Just the whole New England thing. I mean, they're gonna get.
The whole-
other
I mean,
guys
they've had number
involved.
one
They're gonna get
The
their.
whole fuck New England thing is what he's trying to say.
I don't know. They'll get their tight ends involved. They'll get their wide receivers.
what tight
involved.
ends?
I was going to say, I
What
disagree
tight
on the
ends?
tight ends.
What
I disagree
tight
on
ends?
the tight ends.
Dalton Keene, Devin
The
Austin.
great-
Yeah, Chris, I'm asking you again. What tight ends? Like they don't have tight ends. They don't.
So let me throw this at you, because I would be more inclined, exact situation you've painted, if it's Stafford and Galladay end up in New England, I would be more inclined to take them if Josh McDaniels is still there, because I feel like he could transition them into that offense a little bit smoother.
Yeah,
than
I mean,
whoever's
that's
gonna take
basically the
over.
Demarius Thomas role in his offense,
Yeah.
which he
And
had.
I'm not saying, it's Bill Belichick's offense, it's Bill Belichick's team, and I understand that. But I feel like if McDaniels is there as that buffer who can just focus on those two, because Belichick can't just focus on those two. So
No, that's.
I mean,
very
when
fair.
has New England had a wide receiver 1 outside of Randy Moss? I mean, they've had Julian Edelman, but that's because he had like 100 zillion targets.
Still wide receiver 1.
That's more of a Harris. If Michelle's back, if he's not back,
but you could argue that
control the game
Galladay
with
would
their
play
defense.
you could argue that Galladay would play a Gronk-esque role in that offense as the big body guy inside of the red zone. So
Yeah, I mean, we're all assuming that the young tight ends that they brought in are ultimately going to turn into Gronk and Hernandez, but the simple fact is neither of them are that talented. They
Just
might
they're going to
eventually
be
use them,
targeted.
maybe, but
So
I mean,
So
Keene wasn't healthy. Asi was inactive half the season.
well, they're running on 2 seasons now of like 30 targets for their tight end or something.
yeah, they're just not throwing
they're
to
not
the tight
going to
end
throw
at
to the
all.
tight end unless they get a Kyle
Well-
Pitts. They're just not going to throw to the tight end.
They
was
didn't throw
Tom-
to anyone last season. I mean, let's be real here.
They couldn't complete a pass. They threw to people. They just couldn't get the ball there.
Say Jacoby Myers, I felt like had a decent target share, but
Jacoby Myers had a
Again,
decent
slot
season.
receiver though.
Well, Jacoby Myers had a decent season as the quarterback.
he did.
So
What did he throw? 2/9 of the touchdowns that Cam Newton threw, or whatever.
I believe Jacoby Myers.
This is
had-
unreal to me. Cam Newton started 15 games and threw only 368 passes.
That's what I mean.
Like, that's bonkers to me.
I mean, that's an indictment, in my opinion, on Cam, not on that
Yes.
offense. They just
Yes.
straight up were like,
Well,
we're not throwing
yes.
the ball with this dude.
It is an indictment on Cam. It is not
He
on
had
the
eight.
offense.
He had 8 fewer attempts than Lamar Jackson.
Because Cam, I don't know. Has anyone not been listening this entire season?
No,
Cam Newton
I'm not
can't throw the
saying that
football.
Cam is good. These numbers are not in defense of him being good. They're showing how bad he is.
Yeah, gross.
Like that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, the touchdown passes alone, well, it's 8 or 9,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
8.
that's just
And 3 of them
insane.
were in week 17
his
against the Jets.
the
Like
first touchdown pass he had to a receiver came in the Houston Texans game in like week 12.
Well, and then there was that one crazy game where Myers was the only wide receiver target. What kind of NFL offense is targeting one wide receiver for an entire game? Like, that's just broken.
Well, because Cam Newton threw 19 passes and 18 of them went to Jacoby Myers.
Yeah.
Like it's
That's what I'm saying. It's obscene.
they just don't
Like,
have any
there's-
weapons though. They really don't. They don't.
Let me make this clear. Jacoby Myers is not a weapon, so that's off the table. Do not go and draft Jacoby Myers next year unless they literally do not get another receiver.
I think he can be a quality slot receiver for him.
A
Because
quali-
let's face it,
A quality slot guy.
Edelman, he's done.
Oh, Edelman's washed. He can be a quality slot guy, but he cannot be the first target in.
Oh
that
no,
offense.
absolutely not.
I want to
So
throw
that's-
another team out because it goes into a discussion we've all 4 of us have been having for the last 2 weeks since the quarterback show. What if Galladay ends up in Baltimore?
Oh God, no.
Hard pass.
No, my God. If Galladay was there in the 18th round, I still wouldn't draft him.
Wow.
I like the idea of putting a veteran wide receiver in Baltimore. I don't like the idea of Galladay being that veteran wide receiver. That
Wow.
Just throwing it out there.
Diggs is somebody that's got a good head on his shoulders. I'm not convinced that Galladay does. Just my personal opinion.
Diggs has a good head on his shoulder.
Diggs wants to play. He's a tactician on the field.
I say, and he wants to prove everybody
Galladay,
wrong.
I don't see that same attitude from him.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm
Like I don't watch Galladay and like everything just blows off the screen. Like he's in and out of his breaks. He's on the field. He's performing. Like yes, Diggs is. He can be a little dramatic at times, and he was in Minnesota because they just wouldn't throw him the football. I get it. And we saw this year he had a point. He's pretty damn good when you throw him the football.
Yeah.
With Galladay, his game is contested catches. It's going up and getting it.
Well, I mean, come on. He runs some good routes, some nice smooth routes.
Galladay's not as good of a route runner in my opinion.
let me just
Not as Diggs, but Diggs is like a top 3 route runner in the NFL.
Yeah, and let's just be real here. The one game Galladay played, he had 6 catches. All 6 of them were contested catches that he came down with.
Yeah, no, he's good in contested catches. I
Like,
get it. And when you are
ridiculous.
good in contested catches, you don't need to be as great of a route runner because you're going to win those 50-50 balls.
Let's say 2 touchdowns and the 2 healthy.
But when
games.
you look at the accuracy concerns, like Diggs' route running helps mask any of those inefficiencies at inaccuracies, right?
So let me
Being a good contested catch receiver doesn't solve a lot of those inaccuracies because if the ball is 7 yards away from you, you're not going to be able to jump up and get it. But if the ball is thrown a little high, then yes, you can go up and get it. That's the difference to me when you're talking about route running and target separation versus contested catches.
So I'm looking at the draft results from my league because Dave brought up you can see him dropping into the 4th round. The 4th round is where I took my first receiver. This is a 10-team, 1 quarterback PPR league. I went Dalvin Cook, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, three straight rounds. So my first wide receiver off the board was Robert Woods that I took in the 4th round.
And I think that was pretty common for the people that went running back heavy. In the early round.
And then I went 4 straight wide receivers of Woods, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, and Cortland Sutton. Like, I went 4 back to back to back to back.
Let's talk about the robbery of getting DK Metcalf in the 6th.
I know, right? DK Metcalf in the 6th. How about Robert Woods in the 4th, I guess? Because he was a
Robert Woods
top
in the 4th is fair. That's
yeah, I mean, that's kind of where he was going.
Yeah, but regardless, this is the point I want to get at. Kenny Golladay was taken with the first pick in the 3rd round in this league. We all know he is not going to be taken there next season. So let's assume starting in the 4th round where Dave says,
yeah, that's when you're getting into the high-end wide receiver 2 range.
So let's play this game here of would you rather, because we haven't played it in a while. So this is going off the guys drafted here. And let's assume Golladay stays in Detroit. Let's assume he stays there. That's the game we're playing because we think Detroit. Yeah, with Stafford. We think that Detroit is the area where he's a definite wide receiver 2 with high wide receiver 1 upside. So let's say he's in a Detroit-like situation no matter where he goes. That's the game we're playing. So starting in the 4th round, would you rather have Keenan Allen or Kenny Golladay? Josh?
Oh, Keenan Allen, easy.
Chris?
Keenan Allen.
Ryan?
Allen.
Keenan Allen, that's not even close.
I feel like that's not fair though, because that's where Keenan Allen was drafted with Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, and that's a fair point. Keenan Allen may jump up.
Let's be real here though. With Justin Herbert, the yardage was not there. Like, he didn't even cross 1,000 yards this year.
Yeah, but he had what?
He had 100
catches or something, like,
and 147 targets, I believe.
It was stupid.
So a couple of things I want to throw out on Keenan Allen while we're on there, because I've gotten into a couple of Twitter arguments about this. A lot of people are saying Keenan Allen's production is tied to Austin Eckler being out. 75 targets with Eckler out, 72 targets with Eckler in. However, 142 fantasy points with Eckler out, only 103 with him in. And I say only, that still paces him as the wide receiver 15 with Eckler in. So I think Allen is as safe a play as he's ever been, but I don't know that he's a lot of people are, I don't want to say a lot of people, but an argument I've gotten into recently was that he was a far better player, better than we've ever seen with Eckler out. And I just don't buy that at all.
I've always looked at Allen as a low end wide receiver 1 anyway.
I mean,
so even at that 100 and that 100-point range, again, pace that out. He's still going to be wide receiver 15. If you're able to get him, even
in
like early, I was going to say even an early wide receiver 2, like a high end wide receiver 2 with that wide receiver, low end wide receiver 1 upside, that's still a win for me.
Keenan Allen would never get out of the 4th round in any draft that
No, absolutely not.
No.
I mean, and he was wide receiver
13.
He was wide receiver 13 in 14 games plus 1 where he was basically a decoy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I completely forgot about the decoy game. So yeah,
he also had the most touchdowns of any season of his career outside of his rookie season, which was also 8 touchdowns. So just bringing that up there. Okay, so Keenan Allen. Next guy, Mike Evans or Kenny Golladay? Josh?
Evans.
Chris?
Golladay.
Wow. Ryan?
I actually got into this fight before this season. It's Evans all the way for me. So. I get into a lot of fights. But hey, it got me on this show. So.
Yeah. I would I personally I wouldn't draft a receiver in that position if it was between those two, but if I had to pick, I would probably go Mike Evans.
I will say I do like Evans' prospects more if Godwin and or AB leave. But even if one of them stays, I still would take Evans over.
Well, I was gonna say,
I would take Evans over Golladay even if all three of them stay.
Yeah. Evans and Keenan Allen are my favorite wide receivers in football. It's my affinity for the number 13. It's my birthday, like everything about them. So, and Mike Evans actually has the Deathly Hallows tattooed on his forearm as well. And
you guys are just linked.
Exactly.
Calvin Ridley or Kenny Golladay? Josh.
Ridley.
Oh,
Chris.
I'm thinking we're going against Evans. Never mind.
Yeah, no. Chris.
Ridley.
Ryan.
Oh, Ridley.
That's not even close. Robert Woods, I think that's all a unison.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I'm
not touching this guy in the 4th round. I just
and that's where we're going. Tyler Lockett or Kenny Golladay.
This one I might go Golladay.
Hold on, I think Chris is going to not take Woods.
I'm not taking Woods next year.
What?
Hard pass.
I got to hear this from the Rams fan.
You mean the best receiver on the Rams you wouldn't draft?
Correct.
Walk us through
done.
this. I'm dying to know.
The way our offense is going, Robert Woods was only there because of his PPR upside. He had his career high in touchdowns. I mean, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be. If apparently Sean McVay says we're going to evaluate things in the offseason. I love Van Jefferson next year. I think he's going to be great, and I think Woods is just going to be he's just going to be a wide receiver too, just like a Tyler Boyd type season.
So what you're saying is you don't
no
see
upside. No upside.
Okay.
No upside.
I don't buy Robert Woods for his upside. I buy him for his floor, which is
I'm with you.
Yeah, but we don't know what the floor is going to be next year.
Oh, I just can't see. I mean, he's done what he's done for 3 straight seasons. I just don't see it changing.
I had Woods almost everywhere this year because I went with the running back, wide receiver, and Woods was always that guy. But like the way that Rams offense is trending, I'm cooled off on Woods and Kupp, but I would like Van Jefferson.
I'll give you a lot of credit if Woods ends up falling next year. I'm really interested to see that play out.
If Woods falls,
wide receiver 20 or below.
I'll listen. I mean, he's the guy getting the end arounds in that offense.
Yeah, I think if you're going to fade any Rams receiver, to me, it's Kupp. Yeah, but just because he doesn't have the versatility really to be like a strong outside guy.
Kupp was fine. Kupp was fine without the double-digit touchdowns. That was kind of an anomaly for him. Yeah, he only had 3?
Yeah, his touchdowns really diminished this year.
Most people were drafting Kupp as a wide receiver 1. He wasn't even a top 24 wide receiver.
I got pretty close with his projections.
I think go big. Woods doesn't come out. Kupp does.
Yeah, when they switch to the 12 personnel,
Yeah, that's why
Kupp's the one that comes off the field.
Woods to stay in there.
Kupp is starting to be that guy where you play him on your fantasy team for the first 6 weeks, and then you trade him as quickly as you can.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Like every Seahawk. Can we just talk about
every Seahawk. Every Seahawk.
Can we just talk about if Adam Gase goes to the Seahawks?
Oh, fade everybody.
Seriously.
All that talk about DK being dynasty wide receiver 1, throw it out the window.
I want to give a shout out to the fantasy footballers for this wonderful idea, but they said if Adam Gase goes there, a part of his contract should be that Jamal Adams is allowed to just punch him in the face.
I heard that.
I love that.
Oh my God.
Okay, so I'm a little interested in some of these guys as we get to rounds 5 and 6 here. What about Marquise Brown or Kenny Golladay?
Golladay.
All day.
I wouldn't touch Marquise Brown.
I also wouldn't touch Marquise Brown.
Bollywood will not be on any of my teams.
Bollywood's catching on. Nice.
Probably Kenny Golladay, but I do like Brown.
You're an OU fan. That's bias.
Look, he was trending up towards the end of the season.
He looked.
I'll give him credit for that. He'll be going into his 3rd year. Maybe there's more opportunity there, but at the end of the day, the Ravens need to throw the football more. And right now, I just don't see it.
And I think they're going to add somebody, and while that's going to free him up, there's not going to be enough targets. Like you said, they need to throw more.
I think Marquise Brown is so much better as either a 2 or a 1B than a 1A.
Yep.
That's just my opinion. And Golladay, I think, can be an alpha.
Or there needs to at least be a viable 2. Like just
or that,
the 1A. Right now, when they have to choose between him or Miles Boykin and Willie Snead, it's not that tough of a decision.
Devin Duvernay.
Yeah.
I wanna bring this guy. This will be the last guy we talk about because both these guys are coming off injuries. Cortland Sutton or Kenny Golladay.
Sutton.
Josh.
Well,
Sutton.
For me, it depends on the quarterback play with Sutton. Because we saw how bad Drew Lock was and how bad he made Jerry Jeudy look.
Okay,
now, again, I'm not the biggest Jerry Jeudy fan.
Jerry Jeudy didn't do himself a ton of favors either.
Yeah, he
really
dropped
did.
a lot of passes.
He dropped a lot, and that's another guy. But he also had one of the lowest catchable target rates among
wide receivers
this year.
So again, just
there's that.
you're assuming Drew Lock is there, Cortland Sutton or Kenny Golladay.
Sutton did okay with Lock the year before. So I would buy Sutton, but again, I would lean. That's close. I think
that's
I would
why
go,
this is a good one.
That one's a close. I think I would lean Golladay, but I wouldn't hate Sutton.
I faded Sutton compared to other people this season, so
did.
I'd go Golladay all the way on that. So
Chris,
Golladay all the way
Golladay.
as well. I'm a big fader of Cortland Sutton with Drew Lock as well.
Line up my SMU wide receivers.
You know what, though?
ladies
That
and
could
gentlemen.
also be another situation where you could find Carson Wentz in Denver.
I know he was hurt,
I would
but
reevaluate Sutton at that point.
I know he was hurt, but I did dig enough to find this. Cortland Sutton was the wide receiver 180 this season.
Because
He
he
didn't take a
literally,
snap.
yeah,
Did he? I thought he got hurt
Yeah,
in the
he did.
preseason.
I think
No,
he
he
played
played.
like twice.
There was no preseason, Josh.
Or in camp, I thought he got hurt.
No, he got hurt. Yeah, he
Yeah,
played a
I was
little
saying, I
bit.
think he played like twice.
I would have put NA, but then I was like, holy shit, he actually played. So I'm going to go ahead and find his ranking. Cortland Sutton caught 3 balls
For 66
yards.
Against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yep, that
Those
was
pretenders.
literally.
I'm
literally
glad I
real
traded.
Couldn't even stop a hurt Cortland Sutton.
But yeah,
Glad I
mean,
traded him to Joe for T. Higgins. That was a good
Yeah,
trade.
that'll work.
I'm ready. I'm ready for Cortland Sutton. Chris, where'd you finish this year?
Oh,
Just real quick.
Not
where'd you
last.
wait. Hey, where
No,
did I
Hey,
finish?
listen, you know what? Talk all the smack you want. Neither of you made the playoffs.
Yeah, but Josh, I didn't finish. I finished above him with a hurt Cortland Sutton
If you're not first,
In-
you're last.
in a shit
Hey,
team.
I'm first.
Congratulations, Ryan. Do you have a pick in this upcoming draft? Like,
Yeah, somewhere in the third
I
round.
traded all my good players to Ryan, so
Yeah, I'll say.
I mean,
all
so
three-
did Joe, really.
All three of you guys contributed to my championship with a special shout out to Drew for Stephon Diggs. So
Yeah, shit. I gave you.
I mean, I got
traded
you Aaron
Kelce and
Jones
Lockett.
and
He
Mike
traded you Diggs. Fuck, man. Jesus.
I got Evans.
Aaron
Didn't I get
Jones and
Evans?
Mike Evans.
No,
from
I got
me.
Evans. Yeah, I was gonna say I got Evans from one of you too. So
Yep.
I think.
That's what I get for buying into Mark Andrews. I blame you, Ryan.
yeah,
I can't believe you traded Travis Kelce.
Yep.
That's wild to me.
On the downswing, Travis Kelce.
No.
Yeah, he certainly looks it.
On the downswing, ladies and gentlemen, Travis Kelce.
He's tied for 6th in the league in targets.
If you believe Joe,
On the
I would like to
downswing.
join your league, and I will buy up all of your Travis Kelce shares.
On the downswing, Travis Kelce.
I agree. I agree
I
with
am-
Ryan.
I'm just gonna be an ESPN analyst. Travis Kelce will suck next year, and if he
Did
doesn't,
you see
I'm gonna
his
call it
route
again
on
the year
Denzel
after.
Ward?
What?
Did you see him put Denzel Ward on skates in that game
Yeah.
for that touchdown? That route was disgusting.
He's
still
uncoverable.
got it.
Yeah. And by
Joe's
the way,
not a Kelce fan because he's not a true tight end because he's a terrible blocker.
have you ever seen a corner panic like the guy who was trying to cover Tyreek Hill on that 4th down? Like that dude had no idea that play was going off, and I swear he just threw his hands up in the air like shit. I don't know what to do, and the game was already over at that point. I watched the replay like 5 times. I was like, that poor guy.
Like me in
had
high
no
school, my
idea.
coach throws me out to cover fucking wide receivers, and I'm like, dude, I run a 5 flat. I'm not covering this guy. I'm
Well,
playing
even
15
still,
yards off the
the
ball.
guy literally thought the play wasn't going to happen, and then all of a sudden it's happening, and you have Tyreek Hill running at you as fast as he can, and then away from you even faster, and it's like, oops, like what do you do?
I mean, good play call by Andy Reid. No one.
It was nuts. It's such a
No one
play.
thought he was gonna snap it. And listen.
Well, I love
these-
Romo was insisting he wasn't. Or it was Romo, right?
Yeah, Romo was insisting that they weren't going to snap
Insisting
it,
That they were not
And
going to
then-
snap that ball.
and then
You
after
guys could understand Romo at that point? I thought he was just screaming into the TV.
Listen, after they snapped it, and Romo was having an orgasm on national television. It's like Tony. It's 4th and short, and it's Andy Reid for the game.
I love Andy Reid.
It's like
He's a gem.
these Cowboys quarterbacks that become color announcers. Tyler Johnson makes the greatest catch of all time in Troy Aikman's eyes, and a 1-yard out route that Andy Reid has done 100 times over in his career on 4th down, rolls the dice. Literal Tony Romo had multiple orgasms on national television. Like, Tony, chill. Listen, I understand he makes these awesome calls. He tells you what's going to happen in the game. For every right call he has 100 wrong ones. So, and that's with everybody here. The whole reason we do these shows. For every right one we have 100 wrong ones. But everyone.
That's what I try to tell people, but I mean, people are very stuck on Tony Romo as like the greatest commentator in the history of the world.
Tony Romo's Twitter woke mob is dangerous. You do not want to go after Romo on Twitter.
Tony Romo had the Jaguars in the Super Bowl one year, and it wasn't the year they made the AFC Championship. What? Like again? Like, I'm sorry. Jim! What? Like, what is that? What is that?
Those noises you just made.
That's what Tony Romo does. That's literally like when the ball's on the ground. He's like, Jim! He really sounds like an old man getting out of a chair. Like, what are you saying, Tony? Just
I resemble that remark.
Speak like, you know that? What's it? The is it the Geico commercials? The not becoming your parents or All-Star commercials?
Yeah, I don't know who it is, but
of the guy sitting down in his chair going, that's Tony Romo on camera. Like, that's what he sounds like. Oh, Tony.
Okay, this made my day because I thought I was the only person that didn't like Tony Romo calling.
Look at this, Joe and Chris agreeing on something.
Chris,
oh my gosh.
Chris, when Tony Romo was he calling the Saints-Bears game last week?
Couldn't tell you.
No, I
yes,
forget.
Because that was the
game on Nickelodeon. I said,
yeah.
I want the CBS broadcast with the Nickelodeon play-by-play because I can't stand
right.
I can't stand Tony Romo. Also, shout out Nickelodeon. That was kind of fun. Like, what they did was kind of fun. Now, I saw a lot of people saying that if only baseball could make an agreement with Nickelodeon.
I saw another funny Phillip Rivers one with that, and I not my work, saw it on Twitter. But if they had done the Colts game, they would have doubled their viewership with Phillip Rivers kids.
So I mean, I would honestly pay money for like a no censor, just off the cuff kind of commentating, like they're starting to do with Amazon, where they have different
that's
different
awesome.
commentators, like
I like that.
Pat McAfee, and then just that would be a lot of fun.
Oh, Pat McAfee, he's a nutcase, but he's hilarious.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I would watch every game with that broadcast.
It's good.
Love Pat McAfee. He's funny. His his radio show that he does is pretty good too. Yeah, I like Pat McAfee, a punter of all people, who is known for decking the shit out of Trindon Holiday on a kick return. Oh God, that's
retired early for comedy.
Yeah, clearly doing very well for himself. Very well for himself. Probably making way more money than he was as a punter. And not saying punters get pummeled on every single time they're on the field, but not risking his life as much and his mental health as much. Sitting down doing a radio show compared to punting in the NFL. All right, ladies and gents, or just I guess gents and then ladies watching and listening, because there's gentlemen in the room. We focus on the ladies come August, which we are super excited about in our second year, correct? We've only been doing. We did it the first year.
Wow!
Every time.
Listen. I have been running around the city of Dallas doing stuff for my impending move, so I don't even know what day it is. Like, I was telling Josh, I did my Drew Brees essay at work. Like, I don't have time for anything at this point. I didn't have time. I completely forgot I had to find out who my sleeper hits and misses were for the wide receivers.
Oh, do you even do that?
No, I didn't. Because, Josh, again, I had no time. I literally had no time.
I even had time to, fill in my Google Doc yesterday.
I was going to say, Chris beat me to it.
I think...
I have all the time. Always.
I hit on Alan Lazard before he got hurt.
Not a hit, you son of a bitch.
It was a hit.
Right? Thank you. That's
One game. That one game without Devontae Adams.
yeah, right.
He had every single game besides the Detroit game where Aaron Jones put up 55
Well, while Joe
points.
looks
He
to see
had
what's up,
double-digit points and was a startable wide receiver, at minimum at the flex position, most games at wide receiver 2 and one game at the wide receiver 1. So again, Alan Lazard is relevant in the Packers offense. Only for a few catches, but relevant.
2 crazy stats that came up while I was researching the show. Pittsburgh and Carolina had 3 wide receivers finish in the top 25, but neither of their cornerbacks were quarterback ones on the season. Like, that is just insane to me that you sustained these wide receivers, but your quarterback could not get it done in fantasy.
Well,
football.
I had somebody ask me about that in the offseason because I had Kupp and Woods from the Rams both as top 10 guys. And I had Jared Goff at like QB 16. And they're like, how can that be? I'm like, well, if Goff doesn't throw any touchdowns and doesn't run for any yards, his upside is capped. So,
and
I mean, it's possible, but like you're saying, that's
but
3.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to say. Like, so yeah, 2, I completely get it. But 3, and I understand it's just there were so many touchdown passes thrown this year. Just an obscene stat that you could put 3 guys that were viable at wide receiver week in and week out, essentially. But at quarterback, you basically were not viable.
I think that goes to show because a lot of people sometimes question why people have a quarterback as a downside and a receiver on the same team as an upside in the same week. That stat right there shows you that your quarterback could have an 11-point fantasy performance, and the receiver could have a 30-point fantasy performance. Yeah.
If they, and again, that makes sense for 1 wide receiver, but for 3, it's just
it's crazy. It is nuts. That.
And Joe, I'm going to debunk your Alan Lazard theory. He played 10 games. He only had 4 games above 10 points. So don't tell me he was startable most weeks.
I said startable before the injury is what I said. So go
you
F
also
yourself.
said startable in most weeks.
Before the injury.
Before the end. Okay, so 3 games?
Yes.
That's not a hit, dude. That's not a hit. Sorry. That's like me saying that I predicted so and so was gonna do X, Y, and Z, but they only played 4 games, so yeah, they hit. Like, no.
Well, I'm gonna stand by the Packers wide receiver 2 does not matter.
It doesn't.
For the record, he did outplay his ADP, so I was right.
Okay, I'll give you that.
What was the Lazard's ADP? Enlighten me.
80s or 90s.
So all he
he finished as wide receiver 79. That's not something I would get too high about.
Did he hit? Did he hit? Also, he did when I said start him in that game against New Orleans.
Okay, you can be right on a weekly basis, but you can't say he was a sleeper hit.
He was a sleeper hit.
That's not a
God.
sleeper.
That game, I'm pretty sure they didn't have Devontae Adams that game, so that wasn't that tough. I'm pretty sure everyone was starting.
Yeah, because it also goes back to don't play their wide receiver 2.
He was a hit.
Didn't MVS have a pretty good game that week too? Though I think they both
No,
actually hit.
no,
Oh
he
no,
didn't.
that was the bad week.
No,
Okay.
MVS dropped like 2 deep balls in that game.
Okay. I know he had a big week somewhere in there, but that must not have been.
Listen, MVS should be the wide receiver 2 in Green Bay. It's just he can't find his hands.
Hey, I'm just happy they've
Statistically, he
actually.
was.
I'm just happy they
690
found out.
yards and 6 touchdowns.
That was crazy, but I'm just shocked that they finally got a tight end involved because I had been beating that drum for
that I
a
agree
year,
with.
So yeah,
TD Tunyon.
that's right.
I love
Yeah,
it.
definitely was not expecting Tunyon to do anything close to what he did this
Wonderful Jay Sternberger. I'm sure I'll be talking about him next week.
year. Yep.
Oh, Jace. What a guy, Jace.
Such a fraud.
Look at you, Ryan, using that word. Okay, I do know a couple just as I'm scrolling through here. I smacked Marvin Jones out of the park.
Yeah.
I knew that one. I didn't put CeeDee Lamb as a sleeper because I think Josh, you had him as the rookie. I think I
say we both. I think that Dallas was one of the teams where me and Josh agreed on every pick. So.
It was one other guy that I had in here. John Brown, he was in and out of the lineup, but when he was in, he was solid.
Here's a point. I'm going to throw a counterpoint to that because I had so when I was doing my projections with Buffalo, I had 2 guys over 100 targets, which one note when I was going through and looking at the stuff this morning in preparation for this, Buffalo ran 4 plays last year with 10 personnel, which is 4 wide receivers on the field. They ran 134 this year. 15%. That was second best in the NFL behind the Cardinals, who also led in 4 wide receiver sets last year.
Gabriel Davis.
I say, and their quarterback improved 16% on his completion percentage.
So when I'm looking at these, like I had Beasley with like 72 targets, and he ended up with 106 and a top 30 wide receiver performance. I'm like, where the hell did that come from?
If anybody
I get it, it makes sense now. So
if anybody had Cole Beasley that high. I hit Sammy Watkins because all I said was he'll kill it week 1 and then you trade him. So I nailed that.
I don't even think he hit on week 1.
Did he not?
No.
I thought he did.
The week 16 to replace.
Yeah, we were expecting week 16 because he like nothing. Let me see. Week 1,
I thought he did
7 for 82 and a touchdown. I stand corrected.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I thought he did. I hit on Corey Davis. I'm like, I literally said that's a dart throw, but Corey Davis.
Well, and wasn't his ADP in the like 80s or 90s to where we were
it was
like,
84.
how could
everybody was fading Corey Davis. Yeah, he was way down the list.
Yeah.
He finished at wide receiver 30. So
yeah, I'm just going through quickly. I had Jalen Hurd for the 49ers.
yeah,
He didn't play.
yeah.
got hurt
before the season started.
Yeah, he got hurt. I had James Prochet for the Ravens. That was just a love pick.
Yeah, that you had to make that
That
one.
was a love pick. The Seahawks, I had Philip Dorsett. David Moore took Philip Dorsett's spot.
Dorsett was hurt all year, I believe.
Yeah, and then like even when he was supposed to come back, there was a complication that made it worse, and he couldn't get back. I don't know that we'll see Dorsett play again.
Yeah, I don't foresee that either. I'm literally scrolling through like a freaking madman right now.
Didn't you have? I swear you had one of the Browns guys. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe
Peoples Jones?
Was it people? No, because he was
the rookie.
Higgins?
I had T. Higgins as my Cincy sleeper. Yeah,
I thought you had one for
not
the Browns
T.
too, but I
Higgins.
could be wrong.
yeah, I had T. Higgins as my Cincy sleeper. I know that for a fact. I was shocked at how low he was going.
Rashard Higgins?
Yeah, I
I
was
did
gonna say
not-
I don't remember who you had for the Browns, but I swore you had one of their wide receivers. I'm probably wrong, but I thought
We're
you
gonna
might.
look. No, I had Baker Mayfield because he was going. He was
okay.
going low.
You know what though? He had a decent season.
He did.
I said I hit on Mayfield. Anthony Miller, just
No.
Yeah, when there were games.
Darnell Mooney. That was the pick,
Oh,
and we
God,
both
I
missed
wish.
because we didn't even identify him as the rookie.
Didn't even know who
Jimmy
he was.
Grandpa?
I had Deshaun Jackson who hit on 1
He
week.
didn't hit on anything. No, he didn't even hit on 1 week.
Yeah, he did. He hit on 1
No,
week.
he did not.
Josh, he had an
He
80
had
yard
one
touchdown.
catch for 80 yards.
Yeah, that's a hit.
80 yards and a touchdown is a hit.
That's a
We
big
literally
hit,
just
Josh.
said that.
That's a big hit.
Yeah.
I had James Washington for the Steelers. Yeah, kind of not. Like he was
No.
that's a guy where it's like it's tough to say hit or miss because there.
No,
were
to me
weeks
that's
where
a
he
miss
showed
because
up.
everybody was talking about Deontay or James Washington. And everybody was like, oh, I'm going to take the guy that goes later. And at that point, it was
All right.
Washington. And
That's
then Chase
fair.
Claypool lapped both.
I was gonna say it
That's
turns out
fair.
the right answer was Chase Claypool.
Yeah. I had Laquan Treadwell for the Falcons.
When you could have had Russell Gage.
Yeah,
Just
well,
saying.
everyone was saying Russell Gage, so I wanted to go with someone
Contrarian.
who wasn't Russell Gage.
Yeah,
And
Josh,
I'm like,
don't reprimand us when you encourage us to disagree every week.
yeah.
Yeah.
The Broncos we'll get to next week. I killed on the Broncos pick. I picked Noah Fant. That I smacked.
Noah,
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah, I hit that one out of the park. Again, flying through here. I had Brian Edwards as a sleeper for the Raiders. Again,
Oops.
hurt most of the season.
Nelson Aguilar was the guy. Shit.
Nelson Aguilar was the guy. Brashad Perriman for the Jets. A couple of
He
good
was the
weeks.
ghost, man.
Yeah, couple of good weeks, but nothing really huge there.
But let's be real. There was nobody you could have picked as a sleeper for the Jets that would have hit.
No, half of these teams, I literally say in the write-up, I'm literally
If you
like,
had
don't
picked-
draft this guy. This is the only person on the roster.
I disagree. If you had picked Frank Gore as your sleeper for the Jets, I'd call that a win.
But is that really a sleeper, though?
Yeah,
'cause
he was.
He was the starting running back.
No, he was behind Lev Bell coming.
Okay,
into
still, he was the 1B. Like,
I'm just
No.
saying.
Michael
where
Pirine
you
was
could've gotten
drafted
him in the
too.
draft.
guess.
for the Cardinals, I had Larry Legend because I just had to give him props. He was being taken so low.
I got a lot of shit at the beginning of the year for saying he was washed.
Larry Fitzgerald.
That's the thing. I don't even think he was washed. They threw the ball 160 times to Hopkins. Like,
And they just don't need it.
The Cardinals' offense
Fitzgerald.
was washed.
Larry Fitzgerald is so damn good.
Was.
Still good. For the Chargers, I had Mike Williams. Everyone missed on Mike Williams.
Just don't get it. I do. How do you get a strong arm quarterback and not succeed?
Yeah. Darius Slayton. That one was rough.
God, that was a big letdown for him this year.
Yeah, let's be clear who the letdown is. Daniel Jones.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we all expected Jones to kind of take a leap that he definitely did not take.
Yep.
Sterling Shepard performed when
Yeah,
he
he
came
did.
back from injury. Represent.
My two biggest hits, I think, were Marvin Jones on the Lions.
Yeah, that's a great call.
And then T. Higgins on the Bengals. I had been saying from the moment the Bengals drafted him, T. Higgins will be A.J. Green in this offense because they are literally they brought A.J. Green to the lab and cloned him. That is what T. Higgins is. They are the exact same person.
You know what? While we're on like
traded him away.
I traded the second pick away because I wanted Cortland Sutton because Chris, I was either going to take
on the board with T. Higgins on the board.
I told you because I was telling them I was either going to take T. Higgins or Cortland Sutton. I liked Cortland Sutton. I don't think Cortland Sutton is a bad part of that trade. He's still young.
He's going into his third year. Like, he's still plenty of time.
Yeah.
But as we were just kind of talking about AJ Green, I am absolutely floored that A, he had over 100 targets, but B, he caught less than 50% of his targets.
Wow.
Like, that is an unreal stat. Like, absolutely unreal to me. So he didn't look as done as I thought he would be, because I actually thought he would miss games due to injury, and he didn't miss a ton of games.
He was relatively
He
healthy.
just looked off to start the year. Big time.
He played the season on a 1-year deal, right?
Yeah, the franchise tag.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a free agent.
When they moved him
him
and Higgins, that's when they started performing. Oh, well, not Higgins. Higgins was basically all season, but that's when AJ Green kind of started turning things around with
because he wasn't seeing number one coverage anymore.
And he was that short target kind of guy. All those long targets that they like, especially like in that first Browns game, just awful.
Oh yeah,
that
was when the whole narrative on AJ Green was that Joe Burrow just couldn't throw to the right spot on the field.
No, he was throwing the right spot. AJ Green just couldn't
get there. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, it wasn't the fact that AJ Green's hands kind of failed him. He only had 3 drops. Like, look
at the quarterbacks he was playing with. I mean, outside of Joe Burrow, which again, Burrow
Brandon Allen, not bad.
Brandon Allen is god awful, and
good
Ryan
backup
Finley
QB.
is not good.
He's a good backup QB.
Brandon Allen, you mean
saying you're a good
goat?
backup QB isn't like great praise, Chris. Let's be real.
I think
Allen,
it is.
If
that's like saying you're the 4th best running back on a Power 5 school, and that's not always a good thing.
At one point, that was Kareem Hunt in Alabama.
I mean, Alabama doesn't count because they literally get the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
I was going to
8
say
players
all
at each
4
position.
of those guys are 5-star guys. Like, I mean, Alvin Kamara was once behind Derrick Henry and Kenyon Drake, and I mean, that's a little different. But the 4th best on Tennessee, that ain't much to speak of. So
there is a reason.
Is Tennessee still considered a Power 5 school?
They're in the SEC.
That's a Power 5 school.
Yeah.
So is Vanderbilt, right?
There you go.
Vanderbilt is in the SEC. Vanderbilt's great at baseball.
Yes.
Not so much other sports. Just baseball. But yeah, I mean, they're in the Power 5.
Indeed.
I mean,
so is Alabama.
No, Alabama is the Power 5. So
yeah, they are. They are the system.
Alabama is the Power 5. And then you have, Clemson that represents the ACC, no one that represents the Pac-12 because they're garbage, and then you have Ohio State representing the Big Ten. It was OU that was representing the Big 12, but now, I mean, this past season, it was just kind of...
OU won the Big 12.
I mean, congratulations.
That's still representing the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean...
the best every year in the Big 12.
Sure. I mean, Ball State won the MAC. Are we going to say, like, they're a great football team?
Is that a Power 5 school?
It's a G5.
Still
Oh
not
my
top
God,
five.
we're just making shit up now.
I'm just
Exactly.
saying.
All right,
Let's
let's
wrap
wrap
this
this
show
up.
I mean, who won the Pac-12? They're not a good conference. So that's all I'm saying.
I literally don't know who won the Pac-12. Wrap it up, Joe.
Actually.
Ryan, look up who won the Pac-12.
I will.
Thank you.
And then tell you off air.
No, and then tell me on air. Assholes. I run this show. All right. Then next week will be our last week with Chris as we wrap up again the positions and wrap it up with the tight ends. Going to be go ahead, Ryan. What? Oregon. So again, by point stands.
Justin Herbert's alma mater.
Yes.
Marcus Mariota's too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So DeAnthony Thomas as well. Are we just going to list Oregon Duck players? Or are we going to wrap
Kenyon
up?
Barner.
We're waiting for you.
Kenyon Barner.
In this madness.
One of the greatest Philadelphia Eagles head coaches of all time, Chip Kelly, came from.
LaMichael
Oregon.
James.
Future Philadelphia Eagle great Josh McDaniels didn't play at Oregon.
For the love of God.
You guys make it happen. Just understand. You can kick me off anytime you want. You could just say, "Hey Joe, we don't want you anymore." But I know you won't. You love me.
I know you make such good graphics.
Make such good graphics. I make this, I make the conversation. What am I doing right? What am I supposed to be doing
Wrap
right
this
Wrap
damn thing
it
up. Put a
up.
bow on.
now? Oh,
Oregon.
wait. No, where's the bell?
Stop,
Where's the
Chris,
bell?
stop.
Okay, thank
There
you.
it
That's
is.
my cue to wrap up. Jeez, God, we've established these rules.
That is your cue to stop fighting.
I'm not fighting, Ryan. You're just
I know. That's why it's not the bell.
You're
Oh
just
my
being-
God. I'm
Ryan,
just
you're
going to
just-
sign off.
Ryan, stop talking. I'm trying to wrap up the show. Jeez.
Oh, you guys are fighting.
Oh,
Need the bell.
Ryan, God, you got to get to bed. You're an old man. All right, next week, tight ends. We wrap it up, and then 2 weeks, of course, will be our Super Bowl show. We're gonna have Mark Drumheller joining us for that show, talking Super Bowl prop bets. It's kind of be our 1 week taken off from fantasy. We'll obviously talk some DFS because of that game, but that's gonna kind of be the 1 week where we kind of take off fantasy. Yeah, there really isn't much wrap up to these shows at this point anymore. You can follow Josh at the One Hudsonian, Chris at ChrisMo2413, Ryan at the Fantasy 5, myself at Joe_Zolo. And you can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. We have our own YouTube custom URL now. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube page. Going to be a lot of content there in the off season, and of course going into next season into 2021. Always remember, defense wins championships, offense wins fantasy football. We will see you next week for the wrap-up of our 2020 fantasy football season, officially ending it with the tight ends. We will see you next week.